defending this pawn, but he also put the bishop there to kind of block the attack on the g file. Really? King e8? That really got played?
What could it be?
Okay. I mean, I have to admit that, like, that move I find really surprising.
I see the idea.
What's the idea?
Bishop h4.
Well, yeah, but is that's enough of a reason to make you go king e8? I mean, I guess you're threatening some ideas like that.
Mm-hmm.
But still.
But still, yeah.
There's something about king e8 which looks really surprising. I mean, you just, normally don't want to undevelop your pieces like that. So
let me do some fact checker for you.
Mm-hmm.
He just took about 3 minutes to move king e8.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, let's say we go rook c8.
Okay, so maybe this is one trick.
It doesn't even seem like bishop
Gukesh
h4 is
has up his
such a
sleeve.
big threat, because we can actually go for this.
How about
Yes,
that?
one
Yeah.
question.
I mean,
Sorry, go on.
you do
Yeah,
have
also that
ideas
instead
taking,
of
but
rook
I
takes
just think
g3, what
there's no
happens if
development.
black, for example, just protects
yeah,
with
you
knight
can't
f6?
really
Yeah, is there an argument
go
to
for
be
this
made for
position as
that move
white, right? Like nothing moves.
and just make sure that these pawns are
So even though you
stuck
have
there?
2 pieces for the rook, nothing
Definitely,
would move.
definitely.
So I don't know. Something.
I
I mean,
wonder about
king
knight
e8 I
e5
find to be
again,
really
though,
surprising.
just to try and go
If
active.
I'm
I don't
as
want to passively
surprised by
defend my
that
pawns
move,
otherwise long term.
All right, as I was
I'll just be
by
stuck.
the evaluation.
But here maybe can I touch you with rook g5?
Like that's how surprised I am.
I would like to force that
Even
rook
though
away from
it
h1
seems
so
like,
that the pawn on
it
h7
doesn't
will
change
not
the
be
position
vulnerable.
much.
Then go some
It's
rook
just more
c8,
like I'm
king
just curious
d7,
about
and
Magnus's
just
thinking,
coordinate
like
forces.
why that
You were praising me,
would,
Peter,
like, what
for
he found
strategic
so
stuff earlier, but I've got to praise your
something like
play
rook
here.
C8.
Just
like, what's the big
everything
deal?
looks so
Well, the
harmonious.
point is that this
Why does the
transformed
king-
into e4
why does the king
I
need
mean
to go
e4
backwards instead of the
structures.
rook getting
Yeah,
the
so I
balance?
feel like e4 structures,
anyway,
all these
that
nuances,
would be
these
a
are
great
very much
question,
in
I think,
my
for our,
blood, but all these
the
symmetrical
journalists
d4
to
structures
ask
with the bishop
Carlsen,
on g2
like, what
that,
he was
you know, if you ask me
trying to
whom
avoid,
to ask
I
as
mean,
a
maybe
tag
some
team
ki-
partner,
I mean,
if in
maybe some
chess we
kind
would
of
have
a
a tag
check,
team partner,
right? Like
I
maybe
would pick you
knight
any
h3.
day.
Oh, Peter, we need to get that
And,
going, some commentary pairs chess.
For some
Would be great,
actually,
would
Yeah.
be
let's say
awesome,
he goes,
that's for
I'd love that.
sure.
So he would have gone rook c8, knight h3, and maybe somewhere there is a check on h4. Like here, like maybe here's a line. Like he can't move this knight because if he moves the knight, well, things I think he can still maybe move the knight but if he moves the knight, there's a check, and I take and I attack the knight.
Yeah, so probably his next move is explaining why he played this king e8. And what's interesting is king e8 is one of the top choice of computer.
It is one of the top. Here's the thing: I know
Yeah.
it's one of the top choices, but the question is like why it got his preference compared to the other moves? Because I still don't see it. Like I still feel like even knight d5 here. Well, knight d5. My idea was kind of like to go knight e3, but it's a bit sharp, isn't it? It's a bit sharp. I'm attacking a few different things. I mean, it seems like it could work for black, actually. So
Yeah. But I think the knight is pretty bad later on g2. So I have to play rook d2, and then
Yeah.
knight takes, and then double
but the thing is, I'm
rook.
taking this guy.
Ah,
I'm taking the center pawn. Yeah, I think it's holding together, actually. But anyway, I mean, like if I was doing a press conference with Magnus, right, at the World Championship, that would be question number 1, I think. Why king e8? Like, explain your thinking process.
yep.
Okay. But, I mean, in a very vague sense, like, we understand, that he's getting away from checks by the bishop. Like, we get that. It's just a question of, like, why now? What's the rush? But anyway, he played that move. Gukesh took on e4, knight e4, and I guess he's happy that there's no check here.
Yeah, I think that he was just preparing for this. So I think it's a very good prevention move by Magnus Carlsen, because you also sometimes you cannot really decide where this rook will go. Okay, c8 is very obvious, but maybe d8 at some point, could be the square for the rook on a8.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing, though. Like, if he would have played rook c8, there wouldn't have even been pawn takes e4, because then bishop e4 would have been very powerful, right? So it would have just been a different line. But anyway, he played king e8. After pawn takes, he took with the knight. And bishop f3 is on the board. knight takes g3, and Gukesh recaptured on
G3.
g3. I mean, I suppose he could consider taking the bishop, but
I think you just take on H1, yeah?
yeah, you take on H. I mean, yeah, I don't see any particular reason why he would necessarily go for that, but I'm just saying, like, he could maybe have considered that, unless I'm missing something, unless there's some sort of, well, rook b8.
Rook b8.
You can always take on g3.
Just take on G3, right.
But anyway, he decided that he wanted to capture back right away on g3. Yeah, I mean, it's possible to consider taking the bishop, but he took this way, opens up the rook. And what can we say about this position? It's, there was a trade of bishops, and here we have it.
Yeah, I think black has no choice but to take on the bishop because there's no better move than taking. And now...
there was a trade of bishops.
Should black keep the pawn on h7 or just simply take the pawn on g3?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious here that, like, only Magnus can be better. His pawn structure is better. I mean, obviously, Gukesh's opening did not work out for him in any way. I mean, basically, it got him to, like, a slightly worse position that actually Magnus may be going to be able to try to win. Right. So the issue here is the reason black cannot just capture both pawns is because, unfortunately, there is rook h8, I think.
And after king e7.
Yeah, king e7 is the right move and actually feels, well, it feels a bit uncomfortable for white, but maybe white can...
Knight d4.
Knight d4, create some sort of activity. I would not like to be white here. There's so many moves that black can try, right? It's knight e5, rook c8. And basically, I mean, black already has a passed pawn and the g-pawn. It reminds me a little bit about the endgame that Aragaisi won against Grandelius. Yeah, out of not so much. But, I mean, I can see how things can go wrong here for white. Let's say we go rook c8. So can you create play against my f7 pawn? Let's say you try. I defend it.
And probably now I can play rook e1.
And there's a pin.
Yeah, then you have to move your king or move your rook. Oh no, you have to move your king, I guess. If you move your rook, it has to be the one on
G5.
G file.
Yeah. I could move my rook even, right?
Yep.
But maybe you can do that. Try to make a draw. Get some trade like this.
And after takes and rook f5, I think black is just better, yeah?
Yeah, black can also consider this.
Wow.
I mean, it's not... I'm more like showing this probably like this is just a draw. But actually, by the way, this is checkmate, guys. I got a bunch of pawns. I got 3 pawns for the piece. But, I mean, I think this should be a draw because we got too much pressure against f7.
Right.
I just showed this because it was kind of a funny line. But, yeah, black will probably just take and be,
F5.
a little better. But, I mean, I do think that white should be holding this position.
Also, I was about to say rook g2, but rook g2 there is c3, so that doesn't really work. Although it could be a line, like after here and then rook g2, and you play c3, and then you can just play rook d8 and then goes to d8. D2. And if this, and then you can just keep taking and takes on b2.
Yeah, here you win a pawn, yeah? Okay, well, let's go back a little bit. So I feel like Magnus is first of all, he's in a position to try to make this kind of unpleasant for white. Maybe he doesn't have a lot to work with, but I think he certainly will try, right? So given that this pawn is weak for Magnus, I don't think he can really there's any point in holding on to it.
Or you might actually hold it first by playing knight f6.
Knight f6.
You still have this attack on g3 anyway. That white has to also deal with it, like in this position.
That's true.
How to play.
Yeah, you can try knight f6, guarding everything. And apparently we have to go here, rook h6, and try to get some counterplay quickly. Actually, knight f6 is a good point. Maybe we delay the capture of the pawn, try to hold this. So we can go rook h6. And after rook h6, well, Magnus could actually play rook g6, and try to improve his pawn structure. It's actually not such a obvious idea, like why that's bad, because, I mean, again, it's kind of unpleasant for black, for white.
For white,
these
yes.
double pawns, So actually, you're I think suggesting a very good point here, knight f6, starting with that. Because if white starts defending, it gets very passive. Black has time for king e7.
Yeah, but I think I know what Magnus is currently thinking. If knight f6 is happening on the board, then maybe there is rook d6. White will just try to find the activity for all the pawns. So let's say if you take on g3, I'll take on b6, you take on g2, and probably just put the knight on the center of the board, or there should be some compensation for this pawn because of the activity of the pieces.
And what if I go, so first of all, what if I go rook b8? What if I just try to defend the pawn and then attack your rook?
Right, yeah, this is also, I think, very interesting. Probably knight e5. You might have to be consistent with the idea.
Yeah.
Because after rook g3, there is knight c6, and your rook on b8 has to be on the back rank, otherwise it's a checkmate on d8.
Right, but let's actually look at that. That's kind of fun. So I go to the back rank, and I'm kind of happy to be there, because my rook is actually pretty good on c8. And then when you try to mate me, right? I think
You have to.
I could run. That's the funny thing.
Right.
I can run this way, and I think I get away for this. It's interesting because I see why Magnus is thinking here. It's like two pretty good options actually. Knight f6, makes a lot of sense to me, and I feel like, in a way, from a human point of view, like this might be the right move. Because he's kind of keeping it more complicated. And not
simplifying the position.
Yeah, not simplifying so easily. The problem with rushing in to take the pawn and playing this, it's like, okay, number of pawns on the board has gotten less, but it's still unpleasant, right? So knight d4, and we just got to stop this check. We tried rook c8, which I think actually was not the best because of rook e1. We were doing rook f1, but this actually is a double attack on the e6 pawn and the fork.
So you have to move the king, but is there any good place for the king here?
Well, it's complicated because there's even like knight e6 tactics, right? So I think Magnus would need to try to avoid that and go knight e5. And then if rook e1, then how do we defend this knight?
There's king f6, but you have to think about rook h6. But I think you can just easily defend it, yeah?
There's also king d6.
King d6.
I had this weird idea. No, this one doesn't work. But then they go back, though. And you can't take the pawn because knight f3 wins a piece. So king goes back. King here. Let's try your way now. King f6.
Yeah, so any checks on h6, you have options. You can play king g7. You can even play knight g6, I guess. That's also another idea. Actually, I like knight g6 after rook h6.
And you like, rook h6, knight g6. I mean, it's actually a pretty tough choice for Magnus, I would say. Not obvious at all, because both of these lines are quite pleasant for him. So, yeah, he's thinking here, which path to take to create the biggest problems for Gukesh.
Right.
And, I would say, well, the opening has worked out great for him. He's in a nice end game here that I think we can expect to be watching for quite a while.
Yep.
And if he can create problems here with the black pieces, I mean, it's going to, start off his match very well.
Yes, and I'm expecting there is going to be some endgame grind by Magnus on this position, because it's obvious that if anyone who playing for a win here, it is Magnus with the black pieces. But Gukesh is, of course, a very resourceful player as well. So I think he might be able to hold this, to defend this position and force the game into a draw. So I think, guys, meanwhile, while they are still thinking right now, I think this is our cue for our next break. So stay tuned, because we'll be back after a few minutes.
Azərbaycanın təbiətindən, Naxçıvanın torpağından süzülərək gələn təbii suyun sirri, Sirab.
Hər damlasında həyat var.
Pretty much forced, or at least quite desirable from what we've been seeing. So slightly odd, but maybe it's just this knight g8 type of maneuver that he's thinking next. It's not just this one move.
Yes, I think that he's thinking long terms. Yeah, it's obvious that, and he also has the time advantage. He knows that Len is a super deep player, so before making a committal decision like d5, d4, he really wants to get into the essence of the position, not just make a move that, okay, I have to push it, but I don't know what to do next. Yeah, because if you push and then you start thinking, your opponent gets a lot of confidence. If finally you push and then you follow it up in 1-2 minutes with a very nice kind of plan, that also puts a big pressure on your opponent that, wow, okay, so he's ready to transform the structure, and he has this great maneuver. For example, you can easily be impressed over the board.
Yep. Completely agree. So while these games tick along, I noticed there have been a lot of moves in the women's section. So maybe we can see the bird's eye view for a moment and decide where to go next, Peter.
Great idea.
Looks like a lot of action. We've mentioned, we've gone through a lot of the open games. Not too much has changed in the clash between Vidit and Abasov. Looks like great preparation and a level position still there, level endgame. Pragg did play that queen d2 move against Erigaisi, and Erigaisi found a reaction, so still looking pretty balanced, symmetrical over there. But the women's games look anything but balanced right now. Looks quite dramatic, both on the Muzichuk Salimova board and Tanzongi against Goryachkina. Any favorites? Where to go, Peter?
Yeah, I think that first let's go to the Anna's game, because we have been discussing some force lines, some interesting lines. We were more into that position. And the game took a completely different turn. So the moment when we left, it was bishop g5, and we were kind of discussing that bishop f6 is maybe the most natural move. On the other hand, we have also seen some forced direct lines, which were so hard to evaluate after white was grabbing the pawns. Finally, Salimova decided that she wants something different and played the move bishop takes c3, which was computed as top engine line. The reason why I did not want to mention it before, because I thought like, okay, if it happens, we will talk about it. If not, then this is now not the most important thing to highlight, because we can talk half an hour again after bishop takes c3 about this transformation of structure. First of all, the tactical justification, I think it's very important to highlight that bishop takes e7 runs into queen a5, which just goes on to show that Salimova is an incredible tactician. She has tons of confidence that she was out of book, but was able to calculate and navigate herself in these complications.
Impressive geometry there. She's really in top form, you can tell.
Yes, let's just highlight this queen a5 move, because I was thinking when computer was showing bishop takes c3 that what happens after bishop takes e7, and here's the answer. It is queen a5. If the queen takes on d7, then black just takes the rook on e1, and black ends up being a piece up. So yes, b takes c3 happened. There is still the pressure on e7. Black has to follow it up with this ugly move f6. f7, f6. Now the pawn on d7 will really be a backward pawn. It's somehow dangerous. Bishop f4 played, making sure that the e5 square is covered, that black is not able to jump out with knight e5. Rook f7, rook a d1. And the fact that now she gave up the pawn on b7, I felt like if black goes for this position, it means that black wants to set up a blockade. So a move like b7, b6 was very tempting. And I don't know why she didn't do that. She opted for rook c8. But okay, we're going to go for the current position, yeah?
Yeah, it looks very natural, b6 just giving a square to the black knight as well. But yeah, let's catch up with the game. Looks like she's gone for something even more ambitious. Salimova here, who we see on the camera. And now she's trying to trap this bishop.
Yeah, counterplay. She goes for direct counterplay. She doesn't want a positional battle there after f6, which might have given Anna the chance to stabilize her structure on the king side. Wow. Do you understand what's going on? Because I'm struggling to navigate.
Me too, Peter. And I mean, first, I'm thinking, okay, two things. Firstly, is d6 helpful for white? I don't think so, because black will shut down with e5, and it looks like this structure that Capablanca made famous with this white bishop entombed on g3. And secondly, how to save our bishop if d6 isn't productive. h3 or h4 tends to be the eternal dilemma in these types of situations. h4 feels like it could open up lines on the king side. Is that good for black? Is that good for white? It's really hard to tell. h3 would be the safe move, but then I guess black will take on c3 and the game will go on. Big decision for Anna Muzichuk right now.
Yes, and I think now we understand and appreciate why Salimova opted for this line, that certainly there is some kind of a question, some kind of a pressure on white. The move h4 is so scary. I mean, some g takes h4, and eventually that knight start jumping towards the king side with knight e5. The rook can join the party with rook g7 somewhere, maybe some move like rook c4 on the fourth rank, posing some problems. Somehow the move h3 is maybe not that ambitious, but it certainly feels so much more safer.
Yeah, I would be choosing the cowardly h3. h4, it's either very good or it's very, very bad. So, yeah, I think Anna will probably pause a bit and then play h3. And yeah, how would you evaluate that? Okay, she doesn't even pause. h3 on the board. She comes to the same conclusion as you, Peter.
Yes, it's nice to see Anna also being human. That's how we like to play chess. The computer choice was h4, but I don't think that anyone would be really interested to go along all those adventures, because White's king would be just way too vulnerable. h3, nice little move. Now the big question, does black include the move h4, bishop h2, and then captures the pawn on c3? Or does she take immediately? Probably does not really matter. It's probably just a matter of move order here.
Yeah. It feels like you'll play h4 anyway at some point, so you might as well play it now. But then again, it's not going away in the next few moves. So yeah, Salimova has some targets on the third rank. This is why she included these pawn pushes. Now f3 is hit, and then potentially h3 afterwards. Really interesting decision. Yeah, I mean, I find this so tough to evaluate. I somehow quite like black's chances, but visually, white should be doing quite well.
Yes, I also feel like as long as the bishop is on the diagonal and black is not able to jump with knight e5, white has nothing to worry about. I feel like all this activity, the rook on e1, rook on d1, queen b7, combined with this bishop on h2, guarantees me that my king is kind of safe. Yeah. Yes, the pawn on f3 is vulnerable, but the rook on f7 is not really participating in the game. It's more like a defensive piece. That's why it was also so important humanly not to open up a new front on the king side. Just want to make sure that that rook on f7 rests as long as possible.
Would you now play a stabilizing move like king g2, or would you be more inclined to just grab on a7, give white that trump card of the a pawn running? And
well, I think you know me. I think you know me, David, that I gonna go king g2 for sure. Yeah,
Me too, Peter.
yes. However, I'm not sure. Yeah, because exactly the reason why many of my games ended in a draw. I mean, not because I was playing dry. No, I like to go for complications, everything. But my nature was always like, first I stabilize and then I look for action. And we know exactly that if you play against the best players in the world, many times this fraction of a second of stabilizing one more time disables you to get the momentum and miss the moment, and after you don't get a second chance. And with moves like king g2, I have spoiled some advantages where I should have been more energetic, but exactly in this position, it's so difficult to judge what is the right approach.
Yeah, I guess the alternative would be a line such as queen takes a7, rook takes f3, and maybe their rook e3, for example. And white has the passed a pawn at least up her sleeve. But yeah, very hard to evaluate this type of position.
Yeah, my intuition says that I would prefer to be white for the fact that, yes, h4, bishop h2 had been included. I feel like white can shut down the game any moment. Yeah, it's white is not risking anything. White is just way too active. And black still has these awkward little questions that, what do you do with this structure? Yeah, and also the queen on d8 is not yet developed. Well, there is one tactical idea that I want to highlight. Of course, white will never fall for it, that if eventually at some point, okay, we can also take on c3, queen takes a7, if ever that knight moves away from d7, then one has to watch out for some e7, e5, hitting the queen, transforming the pawn structure, but even this does not work because of d takes e6, using another tactical motive on black's queen. I just find it that we have to highlight this because it's a strategical position, but still so many tactical aspects here.
Yeah, definitely tactics all over the place. And Salamova is debating whether to capture on c3. Should we check out the other semi-final in the Women's World Cup? It looks like this one still similar pawn structure, but as far as my understanding goes, it looks like black's achieved everything she could hope for. She's stabilized. White's never really going to safely push forward in the center now. White's knight on a4 doesn't make a great impression. And black's potentially going to play for c5 long term. e3 looks extremely weak right now.
Yes, I mean, basically when I looked at this position, I was shocked. Yeah, that how did this happen? It strategically almost feels like a winning position for black, and I'm really not exaggerating. I mean, that pawn on e3 is vulnerable. If white's pawn would be on f2, everything would be normal. Everything would be fine. Then one could even make a case that the pawn on c6 is the weakness. But with this weak pawn plus all the dark squares, I mean, I see the big long-term potential of the bishop on f6. Oh my god, and I also see some knight g7, knight f5 regroupings. White is in a serious trouble.
Oh, that's a classy one, knight g7, knight f5. Yeah, it feels like she's mixed plans somehow. She went for this kind of f3 approach, committed her rook to e1, but then couldn't pull the trigger and go for e4, deciding eventually to go for something more strategic, like trading a set of minor pieces and putting the rook back on d1. But yeah, unfortunately at the top level chess, it's mixing plans. Can backfire, and yeah, let's see how we got there. Okay.
Yes, and wow, yes. I mean, first of all, I'm already surprised that there was a wasted move on h3. Yeah, that's the first wasted move. Then this rook a1, we talked about that maybe rook a d1 would have been more natural. Then this knight g3, I don't exactly know where this knight is heading. Now, black immediately uses the moment with knight e6 because we talked about that eventually the pawn on h7 might be hanging, but not in this circumstance. After bishop f6, white was happily sacrificing that pawn because of what exactly? Let's just quickly get a chance on updating this. Probably some tactics.
Bishop h4 is a big threat in some positions, I guess.
Yes, exactly. What a nasty pin.
You want that pawn back on h2 now. That h3 move has definitely come back to haunt white.
Yes, so that's why she took bishop a6, and now we already kind of understand why things have deteriorated. Rook takes a6, black has a perfect structure, everything is fine, got the dark squared bishop, and white is never able to push e4 in this construction. Knight f5, h5, rook c1, g6, everything is pushed back with very natural moves. Knight g3, queen b8, wow, that's also a very nice touch, hitting the knight, and also setting up the queen to this perfect square on b5, knight e2, queen b5, rook cd1. White doesn't know what to do. Obviously, rook a8 and b3 finally. That's the current position.
Yeah, and Peter, ever since you said it, I'm so attracted to this idea of knight g7. It looks like Goryachkina just played rook c8, also very tempting, maybe setting up for c5. But yeah, that knight g7 idea you mentioned looked like it was going to push white over the edge potentially.
Yeah, well, rook a8, of course, very natural. Black is planning to go c5, and it's a very nice position. However, maybe this move knight g7 was extremely strong. The point being that, of course, after knight g7, white will push the pawn to e4. However, then black nevertheless has this stunning idea, I believe, to go knight f5. That was the whole point, going for this knight e3 fork. And after e takes f5, rook takes e2, black is kind of invading into white's position. Okay, one could give an argument that, okay, who knows, queen c1, and eventually white king going to h6 could create some counterplay, but just g5. We shot everything done, rook a8 is coming, perfect control.
Yeah, it's easy to see why kind of Goryachkina didn't want to invite any complications or kind of make too much of a mess. But yeah, this one looks like she stabilizes, and weak pawns on d4, a2, f5, rook on the second rank. Oof, this would have been tough, but okay, she didn't go for this, and Tang Zhongyi maybe breathing a sigh of relief, at least for now. c5 does liquidate some stuff, does trade stuff off, but I'm not sure it necessarily helps black increase the advantage. So how would we try and minimize the damage here for white?
Yeah, queen d3. Queen d3, I would really like to play the move queen d3.
Yeah, same.
The problem is, however, that we might not be starting to take on b5 because of c takes b5, and then our knight will be vulnerable. That's a problem. But still, I feel like setting up that status quo with the queens is the best, and then black will not be able to play c5 so easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels like that's kind of damage limitation here. It's my first instinct too. Is it just feels like white is too loose, too many weak pawns, too many weak squares. So getting the queens off will lessen that effect. Yeah, still a lot to play for, unless black has a knockout blow, which I don't see after queen d3. Feels like Tang Zhongyi is back in it.
Yeah, it's not obvious that how big is black's advantage. I mean, it's clear that black is perfectly comfortable. Black is the one pushing, which is very good news for black. Of course, it's a dream scenario, but if white is now clearly only aiming to hold the position, and I think it's very important to understand with the white pieces as quickly as you are under pressure that just let's forget that I had the white pieces because it doesn't mean anything. I have to get the most out of the position that I have on the board, and white has to try to fight for survival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's give Tang Zhongyi some time to come to that decision. Queen d3, trying to trade queens. Looks like it will be at least relatively safe for white. Maybe we can head back to the bird's eye view and decide where to go next before we head on our next break. It looks like Magnus did go for that rook takes g3 decision. Meanwhile, Vidit Abasov still very balanced. Dominguez Caruana following your predictions there. Yeah, bit of a profit there, Peter. And yeah, Pragg against Aragaisi still looking level. So what are your thoughts?
Wow, I think let's go to the Magnus's game quickly because there had been some developments. In fact, we see that line, the escalating line. Magnus opted for rook takes g3, so no surprise there. But after rook takes h7, yeah, clearly he played the most natural human move, king e7. Gukesh immediately jumped on the chance with knight d4, and Magnus played the best move in the position, knight e5, not falling for this rook c8, rook e1, Cipollito. And after knight e5, yeah, because I feel like it's a solid kind of position, yes, so you don't feel like there could be anything important, but after rook c8, rook e1, suddenly things escalate. Yeah, that's why I consider it such an important moment, and I highlight it with a Cipollito kind of phrase. And knight e5, making sure that everything is covered. Nevertheless, Gukesh anyway goes rook e1, hits that knight. The knight can't move because of the fork with knight f5. Magnus will have to guard that knight. Do we go king d6 or king f6, or do we ignore and go rook? Yeah, what are we doing at all?
Yeah, I mean, the dilemma, first instinct, I wanted to say king d6, but then the dilemma is what to do after rook back to d1. We don't really want to repeat the position. Okay, Magnus answers for us. Maybe he thought any king moves here would be met by checks, and he plays rook g4 instead, trying to transform the position. Okay, to trade knights or not to trade knights, Peter? Big moment for Gukesh.
Yes, and the reason why Magnus did it with rook g4, because one could say that why did Magnus pick then this rook? Why not rook d8? Because rook d8 would run into knight f5 check, I'm guessing. Rook d8, yes, it's confirmed. Yeah, knight f5 check. And then black has to depart from this lovely e6 pawn. And it's clear that black still keeps some initiative, but white should be able to hold this position without much problems. Just way too little material. Magnus wants to keep the structure intact. He feels like finally if he's able to squeeze something out of this position is thanks to this e6 pawn.
Yeah, and for example, if he does take on e5 now, Gukesh, rook takes d4, maybe we put that position on the board. The troubles are far from over for white there. Just rook g8 is a huge threat. The g2 pawn really weak. A to d8 might come. Yeah, I don't see any way for white's rooks to coordinate in time suddenly. Yeah, okay, maybe with best play the computer will hold the draw here, but this is going to be a lot more suffering, at least a couple more hours of suffering for Gukesh just for the draw. Are there any alternatives?
Well, I don't know. Rook g4 feels like a very nice move. Yeah, it's kind of knight f5 check. I believe that we have to discuss knight f5 check, which kind of forces king f6, and then we activate that knight. We jump to d6 and hope for some tactical options with rook f1 check, some pressure on the f7 pawn.
King g6. Ooh. This is the type of position where in a blitz game I would start to blunder as black because it's suddenly got a bit wild.
But it's a very interesting move. What do I do? I mean, H1. Intuitively, I wanted rookeh1, but maybe it does absolutely nothing. I don't know. Let's check it out.
Things are hanging together. The white knight doesn't have too many squares either. Rook d8 I was hoping for.
Yes, and this knight on e5 is a monster knight protecting back on f7. You want to go rook d8, kicking that knight away. I mean,
unless you have some perpetual check.
Well, I have a couple of checks, but I'm not really understanding where it leads to, and I'm not that happy because, okay, hang on, rook a1
you can take my knight on e5.
King g5, rook h5, but finally you anyway take the knight on d6, and it's not a good trade for me. Again, we are back to this very unpleasant rook endgame.
I'll pretend that was part of the plan, but yeah, it feels like it works out for black, just about.
Yeah, and one computer line, actually here after king g6, computer was saying that, okay, white should probably just fall back with the rook, and there is a case to be made for f7, f6, just suddenly reinforcing that knight on e5, not allowing some stunning ideas like rook d8. He is met by knight takes f7 according to computer. That's how computer wants to save the position. Knight takes f7, rook takes e6 check, and we sacrifice the piece, but we get access to the b6 pawn, and then we're going to go bc, king b2, rook c3, cement, and we are holding.
Cemento, Peter. Yeah.
Yes.
Looks like a draw in this case. That would be easy to blunder into. That would be easy to miss for Magnus, but at the same time, Gukesh, I mean, he's relying on these types of tactics to work to avoid a load of suffering in the near future, which is not an easy spot to be in. And I think he might just take this knight on e5. It feels like that might be the path of least resistance, but at least it's the path that you know that you can kind of guarantee a playable position. It's going to be unpleasant, but should still be tenable.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of the old school. Yeah, that, okay, I take on e5 and I know it's unpleasant, but okay, I have survived worse than this. I will somehow defend. But I think if we ask Magnus at this moment, if we would have the chance to ask him, he would say, yeah, please take on e5. And maybe it's not so bad, but it's not equal. And thank you very much. That's all I need. The lines with knight f5 check put a little bit more pressure on black, and they are risky. Of course, they can backfire for white, but I do believe that these young, energetic players like Gukesh or Pragg or all these youngsters have this inner feeling, also the confidence and the quality to navigate this complications much better than the old school guys who are a little bit lazy, and that's why we want to eliminate all the tactical options as quickly as possible.
Yeah, my friends do call me Lazy Dave for a reason. So we'll wait that decision from Gukesh here. Will he just trade off knights and go into a slightly worse endgame, or will he start playing for tricks to try and confuse Magnus Carlsen? Meanwhile, let's go to another short break. We'll be back very shortly as we start to approach the time control here at the FIDE World Cup in Baku, Azerbaijan. Join us again in a few minutes.
I've worked with the two players, perhaps with the best chess intuition ever, Magnus Carlsen and Vishy Anand. This course is generally about examples like this, common knowledge that's used on the highest level. Good intuition comes from knowing a lot of examples, from having seen examples, thought about them, and perhaps tried to implement the principles, but under different circumstances. Having thought about it, having tried to implement it in a way, and having debated it. So that's more or less what I try to do at this course. Basically puts the foundation for positional understanding, positional intuition you will see in many players.
You guys play chess? You want to talk about it?
Yes, we do.
Let's do. Oh yeah. Where do you play chess at?
In our dome.
Okay, when I say chess, the first word that pops into your mind.
Protect my queen. Hikaru.
Intelligence.
Strategy.
Tactics.
Toby Maguire.
Oh my God, you saw Pawn Sacrifice?
Yeah.
If you're on Tinder and you're scrolling and someone has a chess player on their profile, is that swipe left or swipe right?
Swipe right is good, right?
Yeah.
Then yeah.
Instant swipe right.
Okay, super into that.
Right, I'm into it. Yeah.
You're into chess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably whatever the swipe is, not
So
interested.
you're not interested in chess players?
I'm not interested in chess players who are on Tinder.
Oh, I get that. In fact, that checks out. If I ask you to name one chess player in the world, can you name a chess player?
Yep. No, I cannot. Anna Taylor-Joy.
Capablanca.
Wow, name another one.
Oh, Kasparov.
If you name 5 other world champions in the next 15 seconds, I'm gonna give you $50.
Karpov, Spassky, Holgar, Carlsen, and Anand.
Holy shit, he did it. You get $50, dude. Oh my God, we just lost $50. Whose idea was that?
309 players, 206 men and 103 women are here for the 2023 FIDE World Cup. It's the premier knockout tournament in over-the-board chess. All of these players have one goal: to become a candidate for the World Championship. Only 3 players in each tournament will earn this distinction. The winners will also earn a combined 160 grand in US dollars. Not bad. The top remaining seeds in 2023 are Magnus Carlsen and Aleksandra Goryachkina. Neither of them have won a World Cup before. Yes, even Magnus has yet to make it past the semis. It's that tough of a tournament. Still, Carlsen is the favorite in pretty much any tournament he plays. But don't sleep on the rest of this field. Caruana, Pragg and Gukesh. They're all here to try and win their first World Cup. For its part, the women's field also boasts some of the strongest players in the world. Who will take the throne this year? In a knockout like this, it is truly anyone's game. Who will come out on top? Who else will qualify for the candidates? What upsets are in store? This is the 2023 FIDE World Cup.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Baku, Azerbaijan, where the FIDE World Cup is ongoing. It's quarterfinal day for the open section and semi-final day for the women's section. I'm Grandmaster David Howell and I'm joined by the fantastic, the legendary Grandmaster Peter Leko. Peter, it's been maybe a quieter day than we're used to so far in this fantastic event, but yeah, you predict it's going to heat up at some point.
Yes, definitely it will heat up. I also feel like I'm remembering your wise words at the beginning of the show, that it could be understandable if the players would make it a little bit more quiet. Yeah, there is so much tension, everybody wants to get into the semi-finals, and you don't want to do crazy things, you don't want to do unforced errors, making life much more easy for your opponent, and we see a lot of maneuvering there. I also would like to use the chance and ask you, you have been there, we already talked about the result and the disappointment that you got knocked out by Wang Hao, but tell us about your routine. How was it like as a commentator also, that how do you settle into a fighting playing mood?
Yeah, good questions, Peter. Tough questions as well. As you know, I mostly commentate these days. I do a bit of a few other things. I teach a bit, but it had been my first competitive chess, playing at the board for I think 5 months, and I was a bit rusty. I'd studied a bit beforehand, but I actually made my first blunder before the tournament started. I didn't realize I would be one of the top 50 seeds, so I booked to arrive 2 days before round 1. And then, of course, I realized only just beforehand that I got a bye in the first round. So I ended up arriving, 5-6 days before I even moved a piece. So it was nice to be there, kind of close up with the players, see what was going on, acclimatize. But at the same time, the nerves were building. I didn't necessarily get into a good routine. I went to the gym a few times. I saw the 2 players we have on our camera going to the gym together pretty much every evening. That was quite entertaining, actually. But yeah, my sleeping pattern was still terrible. I was waking up, I think around 11 a.m. I would miss breakfast, and then I would try and peak a bit later in the day, or at least that was my excuse. But somehow I was still a bit sleepy when the first moves were played, and I would never warm up until the 3rd, 4th hour. I think that's my excuse for getting knocked out in the playoffs, the tie breaks, when there was no time to warm up. But yeah, that's how I've done things historically, and I think that's one good thing about commentating. You can you can be flexible with your sleeping pattern, but with chess you have to get all the details spot on. And yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't at my sharpest. I didn't make any huge blunders until that tiebreak, but I wasn't quite at my sharpest, my best. Yeah, so mixed feelings about the whole experience, but it was great to be there to see these players up close. And I must say, I'm glad to be here sitting with you rather than just feeling the intensity of that tournament hall. It's scary. I've got to say that.
Yes, I also talked with Vincent after the tournament, and he said he has never felt anything like this World Cup. Yeah, the tension, every single move is so important. You cannot relax for a single second. yes, normally you finish your game, you would like to have a little quieter evening, but you already have to think about the next game. And it goes on. If suddenly it's 2 draws, then you can't relax because the crazy playoff is coming. So much pressure on the players. It did amuse me when you told me that you were missing breakfast, because that's exactly my kind of attitude as well. I just can't get to breakfast. I'm missing breakfast ever since, I think, the last 10 years. I haven't been to breakfast. Maybe only in the last round. Yeah, when the last round is suddenly at 12 o'clock or 11 and you have to. You are forced to, or before catching an early flight, checking out of your hotel. Otherwise, during a tournament, I'm not able to catch a breakfast.
Yeah, and these World Cups are tough because there's so much uncertainty. It's like, when will you get knocked out? When will you travel back? I hadn't booked a return flight. I thought I'd back myself and be optimistic, not book to fly home too soon. But then every 2 or 3 days, the hotel call you. It's like, are you checking out? Like, are you keeping your room? And it's a lot of kind of stress combined with the rest days as well. I was kind of telling Magnus, I'll join you to play some golf on the rest day. But every time I would get into the playoffs, the tie breaks, there's no time to relax. So much stress. And it's intense. There's nothing else like it. I mean, I love it, but at the same time, as a chess player, it's really pushes you to your limits. And we've seen that throughout with all the top seeds, or a lot of the top seeds falling at early stages. Oof. I'm getting flashbacks just thinking about it now.
Yeah, this also now gives us the chance to look at the games. Well, the games are slow. We talked about it, but we have to catch up. For example, with the Pragg Erigaishi game, there had been quite some developments. We had that status quo with the knight on e5, bishop on e6. Then your move queen d2 had been played. Queen a8 was a nice way of protecting that rook on a5. The queen is doing a great job, plus also gives the chance for black rook from f8 to join the party on c8. White played e3, rook c8, knight d3 back. Yeah, very nice little regrouping. The knight is heading towards c5. Black goes bishop f5. h3. Wow, that's a mysterious move, but okay, we have to continue. Bishop takes d3. Black voluntarily gives up the right square bishop because it felt like that knight on d6 is a monster. Queen takes d3, e6, very nicely grouping. Black is going for the strategically very important bishop f8 idea, covering the b4 square, making sure that the black squares are under control on the queen side. Rook fd1, bishop f8, bishop f1, white does the same. Beautiful maneuvering, and knight b4 brings us to the current position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks very balanced. The pawn structure resembles an exchange Slav. And you mentioned that bishop for knight trade. At least in these closed, blocked kind of central structures, the bishops matter less. But yeah, if everything disappears, maybe white's got some potential there. Knight to b4 asks the question where the white queen is going. I was going to say queen to d2, but maybe knight a2 could be an idea, just to trade off some pieces to try and bring black's rook, black's bishop into the game. Okay,
yes.
Yeah, this looks quite attractive for black suddenly. He plays queen to e2, Pragg. Okay, blocking his slight squared bishop. Feels slightly loose.
Okay, but there is a purpose, yes, because after queen d2, knight e2 was so strong, and I think that the big difference is that now the queen has access to the b5 square, so that's why the move queen e2 was so important for Pragg, that he's able to answer this knight a2 with a trade and queen b5, asking the only question to black's position that awkwardly plays knight on b6. What do you do with that knight? And because of this reason, I feel like after queen e2, we won't be seeing the move knight a2.
Yeah, that is beautiful. I mean, it looks like it makes no difference whatsoever. Queen e2 looks clumsy, if anything, but there's always a point when these top players play these little retreating moves. There's always a little detail or nuance behind their idea. So if instead of knight a2, what else?
Can you start attacking the knight with rook a3? Of course, you give up the b5 square again, and we have to calculate, but queen b5 maybe runs into rook takes b3.
Ooh.
Is that an option? Let's put it on the board. We can analyze.
Yeah, let's put that on. Queen to b5.
And then rook takes b3 would be my idea.
I wanted to play rook a1 and try and trap your queen.
Wow!
But
yes, you even have
it
such
goes on.
ideas.
There's rook a3. There's still rook a3.
Wow.
Oof.
Yes, but very interesting. Yeah, so much to calculate. Seemingly it's a strategical position. Nothing much is happening. The players are just maneuvering, regrouping, but every single move has so much impact, and you have to anticipate your opponent's moves. So let's go back to queen e2, rook a3, queen b5. Okay. I get access to the engine, and the computer says, you know what? Okay, please tell me another move apart of rook takes bc that crosses your mind with black.
Queen a5, a6. I'm not sure which one.
That's why I was asking you, because also for me, somehow I completely miss computer's move that there is a very strong rook c8 to c6, just protecting. But somehow it was so natural for humans that we want to make sure that our queen from a8 is activated, something will happen. But actually rook c6 and white is the one who has to be careful, because there's no good way of protecting the b3 pawn.
Yeah, suddenly ideas like queen c8 as well, forcing white on the defensive. So, okay, rook a3 looks very natural and very tempting then, and it's very kind of Arjun Erigaisi type of move. If he can be direct and energetic, then he likes to be. So how does white react if rook to a3?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, basically, but if we defend, we give up on being ambitious, right? Because the defense with queen b2, yeah, it's probably the only way to defend. Queen b2 probably enables you to play knight a2 again, and we get to very similar positions like what we might have been seeing after queen d2, knight a2, which wasn't in Pragg's intention. Yeah, he decided on queen e2 in order to fight against knight a2. But if rook a3 move, we'll be able to force him back to this knight a2 idea. Then it could be very, very tempting for Arjun.
Yeah, I think we'll see it on the board. He'll calculate and figure out there's nothing to be scared of after queen b5. And yeah, other than rook a3, I mean, he doesn't need to rush necessarily, but you kind of want to do something if you can. You want to accelerate the play if white has the bishops, and it looks like black is ready to do so. I don't see what else, to be honest. Maybe rook c6 first, if he sees that idea.
Yes.
Yeah, very
if he sees, because actually rook c6 has this idea of activating the knight. Knight c8, knight d6. We talked about the monster knight on d3. That's why black has actually traded off his lovely light square bishop with bishop takes d3. And if ever that knight lands on d6, white might be also tempted just to get rid of that knight with bishop takes d6. Yeah, okay, I believe that we have talked enough about this position. We can move on. And by the way, rook a3 on the board, so all eyes on Pragg. He has to actually anticipate that this queen b5, rook c6 might be quite awkward for white, and he has to be careful with the white pieces.
Yeah, it might be time to go into reverse gear and just play safe now. It looks like both players have played extremely well and accurately in this game. And yeah, you wanted to move on, Peter. Maybe we can check out the game between Dominguez and Caruana. It looks like that is changing slightly, or at least black has grabbed a pawn temporarily. And we need to work out what is happening here.
Yes,
Caruana
wow.
playing very ambitiously.
Yeah, okay. My favorite is to go back. So yes, we have seen this d4 move played by Fabiano. Bishop d2, follow it up with knight g8, the move that was also kind of very tempting for me. Now white plays the move queen a2, showing a lot of courage, basically making sure that, you know what, I'm not afraid of ghost. Please go on sacrifice because you are still pinned on the c file, so it won't be able to coordinate the forces. So that's why Fabiano says, you know what, I would like to sacrifice, but I can't. Let me play something else. So rook a8, queen bc, knight g7 happened. White is fighting for the a file, but by doing so, he actually gives up the b4 pawn. So we get from strategical game to a very concrete game now. And Fabi captured with the bishop.
I guess if he had captured with the knight, then he would have lost his e5 pawn. I mean, something to be said for that. It looks a bit awkward for white as well. After knight takes e5, queen d6. I guess the knight just retreats to f3
and then good luck. Yes, good luck understanding this. Yeah, with this bishop on c3, white has a good structure, but on the other hand, this is a monster bishop.
Yeah, this looks beautiful for black, but he didn't go for this. Maybe there was a reason not to. Instead, he took the other way, Fabiano.
Because after queen d6, yeah, again, this is computer's help. Computer says rook b1. We simply don't have enough time, and we haven't been here from the beginning to understand all the nuances. We need help, and rook b1 is the computer move, making sure that black is not able to place that bishop on c3, then the pawn on b5 is hanging and the knight is protected. So black would probably capture then on e5, rook takes b4, and now without that bishop, one could already kind of understand why Fabiano was not that happy about this transformation. The pawn on d4 is vulnerable, the pawn on b5, white might have some queen b2, knight e2. Who knows, eventually if that knight ends up on f3, it's still a long journey, but if it ends up on f3, we see that black's position has the tendency or the potential to collapse. It's just a long-term danger which Fabiano did not want to allow.
Yeah, I mean, that shows how much lies beneath the surface when these top players calculate. I mean, rook b1 in that position, just a calm kind of pinning move, counter-attacking move. That's not obvious at all, but both players clearly had that on their radar. And now bishop takes b4. What's your first instinct here, Peter? I would be, again, getting lost in the maze of calculation after knight takes e5. Or,
yeah, and look at not only the position, but Lanier's clock. He's down to 12.5 minutes. Okay, they already made 27 moves, so one could make a case that it's only 13 moves to be played till the time control, but the position is so complex. As you said, yeah, we are just trying to understand what happens. There are so many different options. Okay, I believe that bishop takes b4 is kind of a natural choice. However, then black will take on b4 with the tempo, eventually have a chance to set up some queen d6, knight e7 to c6 blockade, protecting that knight and protecting the pawn. So what is white exactly doing? How is he reacting?
Yeah, if you can't guarantee that you win your pawn back after bishop takes b4 after trading off those pieces, then you can't really go for that, or at least you reluctantly go for it. Okay, he has taken back. And what now? You need to be really accurate, I guess, with where we put the queen. We'll find out. Queen move incoming from Lanier. He needs to move. Like you said, 12 minutes. And this one, the stakes are high. If he doesn't win this pawn back, he's just going to be pretty much losing. Queen to a3?
Yes, I also feel like queen a3 will be the move, and I'm expecting from the body language of Lanier that he makes this move almost automatically. I mean, he did spend time on bishop takes before he had calculated this position, and it just makes so much sense, because if black is trying to set up something like this queen d6, knight ec7, knight ec6, pardon me, then this pin along the a3 f8 diagonal, I mean, eventually for some knight takes e5 or some rook takes c6, idea will be there just to set that up. Okay, if black plays a move like queen d6, we make, for example, just to pass to highlight this, that if black plays the move knight e7 to c6, seemingly protecting everything, that's exactly when things are falling apart, because white has rook takes c6, lovely tactics, and everything falls on the diagonal. So there is so much at stake, and queen a3 played.
Beautiful idea there on the diagonal. That means Fabi's likely to drop back with his knight.
But he's unable. Then also rook takes c6 comes.
Yeah, wait, I'm blundering everything. You have to play queen d6.
Yes, you have to play queen d6. Yeah, basically then he will blitz this move out. And the big question is, the move knight takes e5 is there, but this rook on c1 is hanging. Yeah, it drives me crazy. Yes, I don't know. Knight e5, queen takes b4. Eventually somewhere some queen f4 might be there. Also rook takes f2.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, just too many tactics, yeah? Hanging. Let's just highlight this because it's beautiful. Takes, and then rook f8 takes f2. It was the move that feels very strong. Black is threatening to capture the knight, so there is no time to pick that knight up on e7, and after king takes f2, queen f4 check comes with a very unpleasant check because there is nowhere to go. King g1 runs into queen takes c1 check, and king e2 runs into simply queen takes c1, queen takes e7, and then queen e3 check. And then black just captures everything.
Everything with gain of tempo. And of course, Lanier spots this. Fabi had kind of hoped for this from afar, this trick, rook takes f2. I did see rook takes f2 in the featured chat like 5-10 minutes ago, so whoever spotted that, well done. I didn't know which game it was. I was like, which game rook takes f2? But clearly it was that variation. And instead, Dominguez plays knight to e2. So keeping the tension on the diagonal, as you mentioned, Peter.
Yes,
And,
making sure that rook takes f2 won't be a threat, and probably, after all, we were talking about that white should somehow take back the pawn, and knight takes e5 might become a threat.
Also, maybe knight e takes d4, followed by e5, and queen takes b4 in some positions. Some tactics here. Black is awkwardly pinned. And meanwhile, I should mention that these two, as well as being good friends, training partners, they do have history. Caruana is currently up in their head-to-head by 1 win. He's won 3, Dominguez has won 2. And they last played in the World Cup in 2009, so 14 years ago. And even though Caruana was pretty young at the time, he did manage to win, despite 2 classical draws eventually in the playoffs, in the tiebreaks. So yeah, this one, history repeating itself. Who would you take here, Peter? Because I'm having a tough time calling it.
Well, I feel like now I would like to be white, because the fact that black is somehow stuck, yeah, it's not entirely obvious what is the next move. The fact that knight e7 to c6 is not possible, and it's not possible in the long term. And if black tries to stabilize that queen on d6 in order to get knight c6 going, then clearly white will take on e5. Now also the rook has moved away from the f file, not ideal. And for example, something like queen takes e5, queen takes b4 should be slightly better for white. I mean, rook c5 also incoming, the pawn on b5 is vulnerable. So I do believe that the pressure is now on Fabi.
Yeah, very much so. It feels like he's got to give back the pawn, just under which circumstances. And maybe he'll burn a lot of his time advantage on this one moment. Knight e2, I've got to say, really clever move there from Dominguez. Really classy move. Just passing the turn back to black.
He is so precise. I mean, I'm really loving the play of Lanier. First of all, he plays positions that he really believes and he feels them perfectly. Yeah, he has the soul, the essence of all his positions. He's not the guy who jumps too much in the opening, especially with the white pieces. He's trying to rely on his 1e4 move, and inside this, the Ruy Lopez and the Italian structures. I mean, like we talked about, this could have been an anti-Marshall very easily, which Lenny has also studied for the last 20 years. It's so nice to see this deepness. And basically, based on this deepness, he gets the confidence, yeah, and he knows exactly that the position gives him the right to fight for an advantage. That's why he also goes down to 12 minutes, because he knows that he has things under control if he plays correctly.
Yeah, really instructive for everyone out there who's learning new openings. I'm always asked, what new opening should players learn? Sometimes just your own opening, just some details within it, just go a bit deeper. And you can get to the very top of world chess if you know your own openings inside out, if you know them better than your opponent. And let's leave Fabiano to mull over this decision. Looks a bit tough for him right now. No obvious moves. And maybe we can check out Magnus Carlsen's game against Gukesh. This one has changed. A set of rooks are off the board. The question is whether the evaluation has changed. Is it still as unpleasant for Gukesh as we were predicting earlier? Now it's only 3 pawns versus 3 pawns. But black is the only one with a pass pawn, the e-pawn. Peter, first instincts here?
First instinct is that very dangerous for white. I mean, if white could simply trade the pawns with c4, then everything would be fine. However, c4 is met by a very unpleasant rook g3 check. And basically, I don't know what to do, because giving up a pawn is not what I'm dreaming of. But if I just stay passive, then I don't believe that white can play passive. I mean, just making a... First of all, we can't get c3, c4 going. Yeah, just we cannot prepare this move. This is the biggest problem in white's position.
Yeah, you can't prepare it ever, right? Just the rook and or king are going to be tied down. And okay, he plays the move rook to a2. Looks like as good a waiting move as any if he can't push his c-pawn. And whoa, the evaluation bar reacts. I see in the featured chat there, Peter, it says c4 is the only move apparently.
Yeah,
question mark given to this one.
Yeah, computer was highlighting that c4 was the only move, but to my eyes, okay, it was just, okay, very quickly to explain why c4 was so difficult. Yeah, after c4, black gives a check, then computer says, you know what, you have to play the move rook f3, then okay, as human, you calculate b takes c4 check, king takes e4 and rook takes g2. And why wouldn't this double pawns win the game? I mean, the white pawn on b4 doesn't look frightening at all. I mean, evaluating this, that this is a draw that can only be done by a supercomputer. No human or not even the little older, weaker engines would be able to get that. That's some super call. I'm completely shocked. And the move rook a2 is the human move because white wants to create some counterplay against the king. Rook a5 targeting that b5 pawn. By the way, Magnus has already played his move. He played rook g5.
Wow, mysterious. I guess indirectly aiming to protect his b-pawn. If white does go hunting with rook a5, he'll be ready to push f4. But a miss, according to the computer. We see the definition of a miss. Yeah, he had a better opportunity. King d6 looks very natural and was potentially stronger.
Well, the move is natural, but I think we have to highlight the line that white is natural for, I mean, it's good for computer, but for human brain, I mean, what is this? Rook takes g2, rook takes b5 check, king e4. Okay, it's a big race. How do you evaluate that this rook b8, for example, f4, b5 followed by rook f8 is exactly winning for black? It's not easy. I mean, definitely not easy. And Magnus maybe should have sensed the moment to spend more time on it. That's one thing. On the other hand, he looks at the clock. Gukesh is down to 10 minutes. So he was kind of tempted to just make a move. A nice prophylactic, as you pointed out, rook a5 is met by f4. Pass the ball back to Gukesh. And the position is still looking very shaky for white.
Yeah, I think great practical decision. The other one, maybe Magnus realized it was strong, but at least Gukesh's moves would be immediate. He has no options after king d6. He has to go for that race that you highlighted. So Gukesh would easily have made move 40. And for Magnus, it's a gamble. It's like, objectively, if it's winning, great. If it's not, then he's kind of blown it or blown a big opportunity. Now, I don't see any natural moves for white still. This just looks, from a practical point of view, almost hopeless.
Exactly. And that's why also Magnus played the move rook g5, which is criticized by the computer, but might be a practically easily winning move. According to the computer, because I would not be able to navigate myself, so I have to rely on computer. Rook a5, f4, so falling into black's idea. And now it's very important that you start bringing the king back. You kind of provoke that f5, f4 move, so that white's king will have access to some squares. And after rook takes g2 check, king d3, rook g5. This is still, I think, within the reach of the player's calculation. And something like king e4, rook f5, and just start checking. I mean, this just start checking is, I think, so difficult because humanly it would be so tempting to stop that pawn with king f3. However, king f3, king d6 is a resigned territory. Just goes on to show that how mysterious and difficult this endgame is.
That is, wow. I mean, this line, if Gukesh finds it, hats off to him. He will deserve the draw that he might get. But this is not easy to give up a pawn with check in a rook endgame, to give your opponent two connected pass pawns, and then to be accurate enough to check your opponent at the right time. I mean, he's walking on a tightrope here, Gukesh, and only 8 minutes to make 6 more moves. Oof, I don't know. I think even Magnus himself here, if he were white, would struggle to find that one. I guess process of elimination is the only way. You don't have anything other than rook a5 here, pretty much. But
yes,
yeah, to calculate that and to evaluate it is tough.
I think this is the point, yeah, that however, usually if you have a lot of time, you have chance to eliminate options. Yeah, Gukesh does not have this luxury. He already has only less than 8 minutes. He has to make up his mind pretty soon. On the other hand, because of the 30 seconds increment, if he feels that this is a decisive moment, then he has to burn maybe even all his time. Even if he makes a move with 30 seconds on the clock, but he understands that this is the only direction and relies on the 30 seconds increment, it's worth it, because just one rushing move will lead to total disaster, and it does not matter if you have 10 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, or just 1 minute on the clock. Also, a lot of nerves, because we know exactly that the players want to get to the semifinals in order to qualify for the candidates. And it's clearly Gukesh had been on fire recently, certainly eyeing that opportunity. But if he loses this game, then he will need to win on demand with the black pieces against Magnus Carlsen, which is basically almost like impossible. So much pressure on him. He has to hold this game at all cost.
Yeah, golden ticket for the candidates is the big prize. Of course, lots of money at stake as well. But yeah, it's just getting to that semi-finals that's in Gukesh's mind. But rook a5, he needs to play it. We should mention to the viewers, anything else is just passive. If you wait with the white rook on the second rank, black will slowly improve the king, slowly start pushing his pawns, and it's like a slow death. And nothing worse in chess than giving your opponent easy moves to make progress. Yeah, the king is coming. So, okay, should we stay here? Should we wait for Gukesh to make the move? He has to play rook a5. Otherwise, he's going to lose this game and might be heading towards elimination. I think maybe, Peter, we let him make this decision. We'll come back. We'll update everyone because there is drama in the game between Tan Zhongyi and Goryachkina in the women's section. It looks like, maybe let's zoom out of this one. It looks like Goryachkina is about to convert. She has a big advantage. We were predicting this one earlier would go in black's favor, and it is going in black's favor. And there we see the bird's eye view. A lot of games, clock's ticking down.
Well, it also shows that how concrete chess is. Because if white would be able to get rook d2 and knight d3 in, we will be saying that white is completely out of the woods and maybe it is black who is risking. But it's all dependent on this tactical idea that after a move like rook d2, rook d2 actually is runs into rook c1. I wanted to highlight the other problem, like rook takes d2, bishop g5. This spin is a huge problem, and after g3, black breaks with the thematic h4. So yes, computer was highlighting that rook c1 check is even stronger, but I do believe that the whole problem is this pinning issue. And if white is not able to set up this defense, then actually might just end up losing the a2 pawn, because black is starting to capture on f2, give rook c2 check, collect, and this knight, which could be such a powerful piece, is still not finding time to enter the game.
Yeah, you're right. So close to being a good knight versus bad bishop scenario, but white's just one move too slow. And okay, 10 minutes for Tan Zhongyi to try and defend this one. How bad is it, those lines with rook d2? I mean, it looks like that's the only hope. Otherwise, you let black infiltrate on the second rank.
Well, I mean, I have access to the computer and I can tell you that it's -3.
Oof, okay,
yes. I mean, but of course the players don't have access to the computer, so definitely they are playing the game. They feel that yes, it's an awkward situation for white, and the big question is what is the move. But if we would have come back to this position without knowing that this is a critical moment, we would have been thinking that yes, it's tough for white, but there should be somehow a way to defend the position. And knowing the computer evaluation, of course, now it's very difficult to try to be clever.
Yeah, it's looking very difficult for Tan Zhongyi here. Just feels like she's about to lose a pawn for no compensation. Meanwhile, Peter, let's go back to the Magnus game, because Gukesh has not played rook to a5, and it looks like he is now losing objectively. Magnus quickly playing his response as well, putting pressure on the clock, on the board. Look at this, under 5 minutes for Gukesh against 31 minutes. Magnus working his endgame magic. And the g-pawn simply dropping.
Yeah, I mean, rook a7, check king f6, that line with rook a5 was so insane, and that's why I don't like when computer question marks or does not show enough respect for a move like rook g7 to g5. Practically speaking, it was a monster of a move, and luckily we had that moment, and we also understood why computer was thinking it's a mistake, but it's just completely unhuman. Now everything is working in perfection, just as Magnus had imagined with the move rook g5. And then it turns out that rook g5 was indeed a very strong move, not a mistake.
Yeah, I think Gukesh needed 4 hours on the clock, let alone 4 minutes, to find that ingenious defense with rook a5, giving up the pawn and running with the white king towards the king side. That was so tricky. And yeah, in practical terms, this one looks over. What can white even try? If you go passive, if you drop white's rook back to the second rank, you're going to die eventually. Black's pawns roll. Rook to b7, I guess, is just met by pawn to f4, but you could maybe even start a race. Maybe that's winning for black as well.
Well, I feel like if he has already given the check on a7, that probably he is planning to play rook b7. Of course, the move f4 is very much in the plan of black, and now white has to start running with the king. I only don't know that. Yes, what happened?
He dropped his rook back to a2, so not
back
going for this.
a2. Okay.
Okay, now Magnus is going to gain a couple of moves for free. Is it time to start activating the king, start pushing the pawns. Spoiled for choice.
Yes, I think like they are just coming together. Yeah, f4 is beautiful because it opens up the rook. It opens up the king's position also. For example, after f4 already e5, king f5, e4, also the king can be activated. Magnus also makes sure that after c4, there's always a rook g3 check. Actually, the more I look at it, the more hopeless it looks. I just don't see any defense for white.
You basically have no next move, as you say, Peter. I mean, next you have to move the white rook away in order to simply bring the white king back or to push c4. But I mean, that's where the rook was 3 moves ago. He's lost 3 moves for free in a race. That's essential. It feels like Gukesh panicking with the clock ticking, but understandably. I mean, it's a really difficult position. This is why we were saying earlier, don't get into these endgames against Magnus. He's going to slowly break your spirit. And he's outmaneuvered Gukesh here.
I'm thinking that maybe Gukesh was trying to, f4 played, was trying to force that king to f6 in order to go rook c2, and then try to push c4 and against rook g3 check to play the move rook c3. And close the eyes, and he believes that passive defense probably will lead to a loss, so he has to try. That's the only way, and then maybe it was important for him to kick that king away from the b pawn as far as possible.
Yeah, looks like he's got to try something like this. At least start a race, at least get a pass pawn. White's king just too far away, and you predicted rook c2 on the board. And now the question is, does black hold you up with rook g3 for one more move? Does black just continue pushing the pawns?
I feel like rook g3 is a very brutal move, because the whole hope of white is based on the fact that you want to get counterplay. But after rook g3, you can't push the pawn, you have to fall back with the king, but then black just activates the king to e5, makes further progress, and after c4, b takes c4, we will never get any counterplay because the pawn is falling with check. Black's king is also getting much closer to the b pawn. And also one highlight that after rook g3, just let me show this move because maybe it's a little difficult to show with arrows, that even the idea with pushing the pawn with b5 runs into rook b3 check and the pawn is falling. I don't see any counterplay for white after rook g3. And Magnus, knowing Magnus, it's just a matter of seconds when we will see rook g3 on the board.
Yeah, unfortunately for Gukesh, black's moves are also very natural, even if it wasn't Magnus right now. But yeah, rook g3 would be sadistic, just cutting across the opponent's plans. I think this one might be over by the time control. Gukesh needs a trick, but Magnus isn't feeling merciful today. Oof. Yeah, this is tough. I mean, this happens to all of us. I've lost track of the number of times Magnus has ground me down in an endgame when we play Blitz. Pieces just end up on good squares, and somehow you always end up passive against him. It's crazy, this knack he has. And Gukesh will learn from this, of course. There we go, rook g3 on the board, pinning the c-pawn.
On the board, yes.
King b2, you could tell body language there, Gukesh losing belief.
King a2, king a2, ooh. Yes, because he's trying c4 and b5. I mean, this is the only chance. The only problem is that it's completely lost because black's king is just way too close to the action. There is no hope.
Yeah, that's a nice touch though from Gukesh. We've got to praise him for that. King a2 stepping out of those checking ideas that we mentioned. But still, the race is not really a race here. King e5, how difficult do you think that is for Magnus right now?
Not difficult at all. It's basically the move that he would play in a bullet game. I think it's his instinct. He is just now posing, and this is absolutely correct. Why should he rush? He has 28 minutes. He feels that the position is now definitely objectively winning. He just has to make sure that he calculates some forcing direct lines. And the fact why we appreciate King e5 so much is that after c4, b takes c4, I don't know. Yes, probably white starts with rook b2 or b5, but whatever, black's king is very much in control of the b pawn. Yeah.
You're in the square, you're in the box. King d5 looks like it's going to come.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I just don't see the drama. The fact, however, that Magnus is taking his time, it's absolutely correct. That's how you have to approach such situations.
Yeah, very professional. Pause just to double check. Don't give your opponent even a glimmer of hope. Yeah, do you think he's going to be able to fight back? You mentioned, Peter, like it's an impossible task. Nearly nobody has ever done that on demand against Magnus with the black pieces, but he's got to believe. Gukesh, he's done it before. He's beaten very strong players with black pieces.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, we have been covering the Champions Chess Tour. We know exactly what happens, and Magnus always states in every of his interview, well, if I go up on the scoreboards, then good luck to my opponents. And I hardly recall any scenario when his opponents were able to come back. It was always a question like, if Magnus has a rough start and he loses because of some mystical reasons, then he's still capable. Yeah, we always kind of believe that he can pull it off, but especially with the black pieces, how you do that, I can't really imagine.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy. And yeah, heartbreak, of course, for Gukesh if he does lose as expected. And yeah, especially with the white pieces. That's why we were saying minimal risk. That tends to be the approach by a lot of top players, experienced players in these knockout formats. But he's got to this point by taking a lot of risks, Gukesh, and he's been consistent. Okay. What do you think, Peter? Should we stay here till the end? Should we check in on some of the other games?
Well, I feel like I think King E5 is like the final ceiling move, and probably Magnus will play that move pretty quickly. Now his body language, but you might know him better than me, but to me it looks like he's about to make a move.
Yeah. Let's wait for Magnus's move. If he plays King E5, I think we can write this one off as a win for Black. Just Black's king doing dual purpose work there. Anything else? Does White get a chance? I mean,
well, probably not, but then there is something to calculate at least.
Yeah. At least that would open the door slightly for Gukesh with his potential past B pawn there.
Yes, because what are the alternatives? Otherwise, Black pushes E5 or pushes King F5. I mean, King F5 is clearly inferior to King E5. The king is just further away from the B pawn. There could be a case that if Magnus feels like, you know what, I don't have to see ghosts. Let me calculate these lines like with E5, C4. I mean, after all, I'm so much ahead in all this race. B takes C4. What am I afraid of? Yeah, B5. Where does this lead? I'm not really seeing, but I'm. Yes, I look at. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the screen, so I'm not the right. I see the engine line. So please tell me what are your instincts to be able to think like a chess player over the board.
I mean, I agree. King E5. I mean, it's kind of textbook rook endgames. You activate your king, you kind of prevent the opponent's counterplay. But yeah, here I'm just rook B2 is the only question that you could calculate. If he works out that this is winning for Black, this pawn endgame, then he could go for something like this. If not, then.
But it's only winning in one way. Everything else is a draw. So that's why I feel like, humanly speaking, you just don't want to put yourself in a shoe like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to go for E4, close your eyes and go for E4 and calculate.
Yeah, and of course Magnus doesn't want to calculate King E5 on the board.
Course. Yes.
Now King B2 from Gukesh. Yeah, his king could have gone to B2 last move, so I guess that's an admission basically that things have gone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, basically King E5 just wins the game. Now all the races are won by Black. Black gets another extra move. I think it's fair enough to move on to something else. Do you have a suggestion? Is somewhere things heating up?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about a couple of games for a while. Vidit against Abasov is still this endgame, still looks very balanced. Maybe we just do a very quick check-in there. We see that game happening behind Gukesh and Magnus on the camera. I just want to mention as well that Abasov has, I mean, they're at move 50 now. Abasov has 1 hour 15 on his clock. So I don't think we need to do too deeper dive, but just a quick update into this game. This is the current position. Hasn't changed much at all. Black still has this past E-pawn.
It's fairly balanced, and I think if now White plays the move King G2, then we might be in for a repetition of moves with Rook H4, King G3, Rook H8. It's kind of a logical outcome of this well-played game by both sides. And what else? What happened in the Dominguez Caruana game?
Yeah, we should just point out there was a threat of Bishop H4, and okay, Vidit didn't go for the repetition, so that game will continue even if it's balanced. And this one, the queens are off, Peter, and we're past the time control. However,
No. It's just move 33.
Just
we
move
didn't
33.
pass anything.
Okay, sorry, I was looking at the other game, the move counter. Okay, queens and knights off the board.
Yes, but there is a very specific pawn structure. Yeah, I mean, clearly white is pushing because all of black's pawns are vulnerable. You will have to give up some of them in order to get counterplay. Where do we put that rook?
Yeah, we want
That's
to be
the
behind the
first
passed
question.
pawn, but the d4 pawn is hanging. Rook to
Yes,
d7.
for example, rook. I mean, just to highlight, yeah, rook b6 is the move that we talked about to be behind the pawn, but then the white captured on d4, and I think if black goes for knight g6, we might have rook c6. Is that an issue? Yes, it is an issue. Yeah, this is a big problem, huge problem.
Very nice there. And the knight on c6 will protect everything. Okay, so where to go?
Yes, that's the very big question. And by the way, Fabiano is now behind on the clock. So he had 20 minutes time advantage, he had half an hour time advantage. But finally, Lenier basically haven't spent a single second. In fact, he gained time on the clock ever since we left. Just very quickly to go back to understand how did it happen. Queen a3, queen d6, knight e2, rook d8, knight takes d5, knight bc6, queen takes d6, rook d6, f4. I'm loving this move, f4. It's a very high class move. Very classy takes. And what else? Rook d7 or rook a6? Yeah, those are our options, or even rook c6. Crazy position.
Crazy position. Rook c6, I'm slightly afraid of just rook to b1. And again, 2 pawns are hanging. Feels like you'll have to defend some pawn down position there. Rook a6 might be the way, just going active. And it's only because this variation you mentioned, rook c6 was a really annoying resource there. But this time I guess the b5 pawn's not protected. This is difficult.
I mean, very difficult. According to computer, black has to play the move knight g6. Black has to find this move, and after knight takes b5, not to capture on e5, but to go for knight f4. Oh my god! Okay, this is completely insane stuff. It's like you deserve a Nobel Prize if you find moves like this in time trouble.
Yeah, Fabi's found more difficult moves than this one in his career, but this one he has to spot from afar right now. So 3 or 4 moves in advance. And especially when he has 3 or 4 alternatives, this is not obvious. So the idea is just to go for the d pawn, which is more valuable than the e5 pawn. Oof.
Yes, and this monster knight on f4, yeah, heading towards knight e2 fork, knight takes d3, and setting up counterplay on the second rank against the pawn on g2. Wow, if he finds this would be fantastic save.
Yeah, and it's definitely a case of a save right now. It's two results, it feels like. Fabiano playing for the draw, which he should achieve. Rook b6, though, Peter. Ooh, we didn't like this one.
No, not at all. Yeah, knight takes d4, and yes, go on.
Sorry, his idea must be to play b4 here before it's too late.
Yeah, but then white also has something like knight b3, and we can stabilize our center with the d4 move.
Oof. I think big winning
Fabiano, yes, in big trouble.
Okay, Dominguez, he's played so quickly and so confidently these last few moves. And Fabiano still hasn't played b4. Maybe only now it's dawning on him that knight g6, rook c6, as you highlighted, is catastrophic for black, almost.
Yeah, it is catastrophic. I mean, but then, yeah, he has to play b4 and then knight b3, then try to activate the rook with rook a6 as quickly as possible. I don't think that black has the right to be passive for one more move. Then it will be just hopeless.
Ooh, but you didn't play rook b6 in order to just play rook a6 2 moves later. That's big miss there from Fabiano. And that, again, that's the pressure of the World Cup. That's the pressure of the clock ticking, the stakes that they're playing for right now. Oh, knight g6 on the board. Blunder, wow. Peter.
Well, but it's the logical follow-up, as you mentioned, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they say mistakes come in pairs. This is a prime example of that. Do you think Lenier is just going to blitz rook c6 now?
No, knowing him, he won't be blitzing it because he senses that, okay, this is a golden opportunity. I still have 5 more moves to play, but I have 12.5 minutes with 30 seconds increment. This is the moment to be tranquilo, yeah, just to calm yourself down, make sure that the nurse won't be playing tricks on you, and he knows exactly that that this rook c6 position looks very promising.
Wow, we came in at the right moment. It was objectively in the balance, but difficult in practical terms for Fabiano. And yeah, I think I would have made similar mistakes to him. I think it's just he's played the natural moves. Unfortunately, they just haven't worked. And there we go, mistake according to the game review, but only if Linia finds a rook to c6. Yeah, once you spot it.
Yes, and look at the body language. I feel like, because I'm so happy that we have these cameras and everything, and I feel like Lenier believes, that this is now an incredible big chance. He has tremendous respect of Fabi. So I'm not sure that, people they also ask that, okay, what do you expect from a match? Basically, you don't expect anything. Yeah, you know that you are playing on the highest level. You have to give your best. And even if you give your best, it might not be enough, because you simply know that your opponent is also so tough. But when suddenly you feel like I have a chance, and if I play it now correctly, then I might win. And if I win, I have all the chances to knock Fabiano Caruana out of the World Cup. That's a crazy big moment. Yeah, then you have to make sure that you calm yourself down as much as you can, because just these kind of thoughts can also distract you from the moment.
Yeah, if I could count the number of times that I've frozen in winning positions against strong players, then I'd be a rich man. But yeah, it's going to be difficult, the conversion stage with nerves, especially even if he finds rook c6 even. But there we go, it's on the board. Classy move.
Yes. I mean, everybody have witnessed what Dominguez has done against Sarana. That was some incredible precision game in the previous round, knocking out Sarana with a superbly played game with so many very long tactical lines, always in total control, not missing a single detail. I mean, for such a player, I have to say that when I saw this f4 move, I felt like f4 was a very classy move, and it completely disbalanced Fabiano. It could have been that from a distance, Fabi has underestimated the move of f4, and he's paying the price for it. He's in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah, f4, it does look like it ruins White's pawn structure, but more importantly, just dynamically, it kind of kicked the black rook off balance, and he chose the wrong square for that rook. Yeah, always those unexpected moves when the clock is ticking have such a big effect. And okay, how would we try and defend this? We're talking about potentially a knight endgame, a pawn down, and we know that those are tricky at the best of times. White's d-pawn will be ready to roll if the rooks disappear from the board.
Yes, so basically, we are talking about takes. If White gets time to protect the pawn on e5, the b-pawn is not moving, then we get similar endgame like what happened between Vincent and Magnus, that is just hopeless. So b4, knight takes b4, knight takes e5, but it does feel like this is a very bad knight endgame. I mean, White can play d4, White can just bring his king to the center. With a passed pawn, it should be a win. I assume it should be a win. And then the big question is there a case to be made that, okay, let's forget about everything. We understand that rook takes e6 is like a slow dead, and we try to gamble with something like rook b7, rook takes e6, and then b4, knight b3, and then try to go rook c7 and try to get active somehow.
Yeah, this one, again, you don't get good feelings, but at least some active play. How about knight to f4 instead of b4, a couple of moves back? Sorry, Peter.
After rook e6.
Mm-hmm. Just to try and win that d3 pawn.
Yes, okay, then I was thinking like maybe rook d6. Okay, let's highlight knight takes d3, e6.
Yeah, just too quick.
It's too strong. Especially because I see that it's +5, you know, it's I mean it's crazy. Yeah, otherwise it's not obvious at all. I'm expecting that Fabi might try something of a rook move.
Yeah, he's got to choose between two poisons here. Either he goes for that long endgame, as you say, where it's going to be hopeless long term, or he keeps the rooks on. I think this latter option is going to happen.
It happened already. Yes, yeah. Rook b7 on the board.
And how accurate does white need to be here? Rook takes e6 looks like the only logical move.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to... yes. Okay, there is a case to be made, but the knight takes e6 runs into knight e5, so that's a case that this is eliminated. Of course, rook takes e6 is the move that you want to play, but you have to calculate this knight f4, knight takes d3, because usually humans are afraid of connected pass pawns. Yeah, if you get a chance to eliminate one of the connected pass pawns, you feel like, all right, it's not great, but I might be able to somehow defend that position.
Yeah, rook takes e6 on the board, and Fabiano pushes. So exactly what you predicted. He's gambling on the fact that his rook will get active. Okay,
yeah, knight b3, rook c7. Yeah, and now we appreciate what computer was saying, that rook a6, just give up all your pawns immediately. But there the black pawn on e6 was still alive. That was the key difference.
Yeah, knight to b3 predicted here.
For sure. Yeah. And then rook c7.
Yeah. At least he's posing a couple of questions here, Fabiano. Good practical decision. Meanwhile, we should mention one update. The game between Anna Muzychuk and Salimova has ended in a draw. And we'll do a bit of a recap later on. It feels like Goryachkina as well is on the brink of victory, as predicted, as we mentioned a bit earlier, against Tan Zhongyi. There we see Salimova leaving the board. Good result for her, draw with black against a significantly higher rated opponent.
Yeah, of course it's great. On the other hand, Anna Muzychuk was incredibly powerful with the black pieces against Elizabeth Petz in the previous round. Yeah, so I believe she gets a lot of confidence out of this, that yes, there was even a moment when she had to bounce back with the black pieces in the rapid portion, I believe. So definitely she had that scare. She might have faced elimination, but bouncing back with the black pieces, I think, gives you this invincible feeling, yeah, that if I was able to handle this situation, then I'm ready for any challenge.
Yeah, so big day tomorrow for both of those two players. And we'll keep you updated with other results. We're approaching move 40. I think we might stick it until move 40. And then we'll do a quick recap of the other games. I should mention Magnus Carlsen and Gukesh. They have passed that magical move 40 mark. Gukesh is away from the board. He knows that he's losing. Not much has changed on the position. So we'll do an update there a bit later on as well. And the other games look pretty balanced in the quarterfinals here of the open section. Okay, rook c7, Peter.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it has to be played. Yeah, it has to be played. There is just no other move. It's the only chance. Because now, is there a case to be made for knight f4 to start with knight f4? But I feel like then the e pawn will be much faster. Yeah, like knight f4, rook d6, rook c7, e6. And black is just not able to generate any counterplay. So yeah, rook c7 played on the board. How would you handle this position?
Yeah, stabilization seems like the name of the game. Not immediately obvious. The rook's tied down to the e-pawn. Rook c3 is a threat. I mean, first instinct, I want to play d4, but that's without any calculation whatsoever.
Yeah, then, okay, d4, rook c3, and there is something at least to talk about.
Yeah, the problem is I wanted to play knight c5 here, but knight f4 to e2, an idea we discussed a bit earlier, could potentially be powerful.
And then the knight is hanging with the tempo.
Yeah. So again, it's just playing for these tricks as black, but it's what you got to do.
Yes, that's what you have to. I mean, the big question is that, is the move rook b6 possible? That can we somehow control everything with a move like rook b6, or this rook c3, rook takes b4, rook takes d3, for example, is something that is a little bit disturbing, because I do see this line that takes, rook takes d3, and then e6, and the knight will be able to protect both pawns. This is what attracts me to this line so much, and with the e-pawn on the board, black's rook will never be able to guard that e-pawn from behind, and if it's not able to guard from behind, then I feel like white should be just winning this.
Yeah, this is a case of double pawns being really useful, because one double pawn blocks the black rook's access to the other. Yeah, actually, in practical terms as well, this looks super safe and kind of inevitable that white's going to win. So rook b6 looks
Yeah,
like
so
a good way to go.
basically rook b6. Another line to calculate: rook b6, knight takes e5. Yeah, grabbing the pawn. Then white plays the move d4. Let's just put it on the board. Lenny is still thinking, and he will be thinking some more. Then the case was to push d4, and now we have still the connected pawns. The rook is behind the pawn. Ideally placed, black has to lose a tempo with his knight. Probably jumps to d3, protecting the pawn on b4. And now it's the question, how do we play this position?
Yeah, at least for me, this would make me pause because it feels like black's got some counterplay. The b pawn's still alive. Stakes are suddenly, I mean, the margin for error is suddenly a bit smaller.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this one doesn't look so clear at all. Also, white's king on g1 is not able to join the center.
Maybe it's relevant
Lenny,
that d5
yes.
here, Peter, and there's no time for rook c3 because of d6. Maybe.
Yes, it's correct. I mean, it was the choice of the computer also, saying that it's kind of winning. I only like to pause and to give our feelings as well. Yeah, that it feels that black is generating some counterplay, but yes, that's why you have to spend all your energy. You have to calculate very precisely every single line. You just can't stop at some moment when it feels like, okay, it's not so easy. I want to find an easier win, because on high level games, there always will be some crazy amount of resistance. In order to win, you have to be ready to enter all these sharp lines, move per move lines, which you have to calculate like a machine.
Yeah, and for a moment there, we saw in the camera Magnus Carlsen getting up, watching the games. Of course, he'll be kind of very interested in the potential results of this one. And that does also mean that Gukesh is back at the board, mulling over that lost position that we discussed a bit earlier. So, okay, we're closing in on move 40 in this game. Lenya still pausing. Big moment. Rook b6. Or not rook b6. Looks like a winning move.
Yeah, and so important, basically for the whole match, for the whole World Cup, for the fight for the candidates. It's clear that if Lenya wins this game, it's nothing over, because Fabiano will have the white pieces. He will have all the chances to bounce back. But I would give the case that if Lenya is not converting this, that would be such a heartbreak for him, because he knows that this was an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, when do you get such a chance beating Fabiano from an end game? Yes, it's difficult. It's not easy yet, but there is no real counterplay, no threat against your king. You should be able to navigate this somehow.
Yeah. Okay, long think here. He spent more than half of his remaining time on this one move, but it will be worth it if he finds the move rook to b6. Peter, we mentioned d4 as well. Does that blow some of the advantage, or is it still, you think, winning here?
Well, the computer says that after d4, rook c3, the strange and ugly move knight a5, it's not the intuitive move. It's still good enough for white. But I feel like it's so awkward. You definitely, if you play d4, you would like to continue with knight c5, which is a mistake due to this knight f4, knight e2 trick that you very nicely highlighted. So it's a big moment. It's a big moment because clearly Lenya would like to play d4, if not for this problem with his knight. Otherwise, he has to calculate all the lines with rook b6.
Yeah, and he's in calculation mode. You see on the camera there, Dominguez. Okay, well, I see in the featured chat as well, people talking about Fabi making a comeback tomorrow. He's not out of this one yet, especially if rook b6 doesn't land on the board this moment. Oof, yeah, I was looking at my World Cup, and in both the tiebreak games and in the classical games, I made mistakes in and around move 40. So yeah, I think that's natural for all of these players. Big moment, 6-minute think. Surely he's going to play rook b6 after all of this. Process of elimination again.
Well, but his problem is it would be such a dream scenario if he would only have one move in this position. Yeah, but this is the problem, that he's pawned with choice, and he might be looking at rook b6 first, then he discovers some problem like this knight takes e5, d4, knight d3 followed by rook c6 is not that clean. Then you are automatically kind of tempted to, okay, come on, but position should be winning. Then maybe d4 is better. Yeah, then you and rook b6 on the board. Very well done by Lenya.
Very well done. And now it's move 39. Just needs to make that time control. And then I think...
Wow. Yes, but let us highlight that how unfortunate it is for Fabiano that after d4, knight d3, they will be reaching move 40. Because that move d4, d5, yes, d4 already played, is really the only move according to computer to win for white. And it would be so difficult to, I mean, probably Lenny has foreseen it, but there would be a case to be made that it's so much more easier not to play the move d5 in time trouble than after spending something like 10 or 15 minutes here.
Yeah, poor Fabi. If this was move 39 and Dominguez only had 1 or 2 minutes, he'd bank on himself. He'd at least have some chances. But yeah, this one now, Dominguez will take a long think, and we think d5 will appear, rushing forward and winning the game. Oof. Peter, should we do a quick recap of the others before we go on a short break?
Definitely. Let's do that. So with which game do we start?
Well, firstly, we'll just, without diving in, we'll mention that Gukesh still has this lost position against Magnus. I'm not sure if he'll fight on. I think he might play a few more moves before resigning. Vidit against Abasov, still completely level. Maybe the only one that's significantly changed is Pragg against Erigaisi. So maybe just a quick look there, and then we will go on a short break.
Wow, what happened here?
Oof. I'm not sure a quick look is the right word there. Maybe we'll have to unpack after the break. But definitely this one has changed.
Well, actually, I would say that we can't go on break because Pragg is down to 25 seconds. We have to wait till the time trouble to be over if we have the chance, because it's so dramatic.
Yeah, I thought the position itself was dramatic enough, but the clock situation... okay, we see Vidit on camera here. It's not his game, but we will get those cameras up in a moment. White is a piece up. White has an extra bishop, but that black d-pawn's running, and Pragg has made a mistake. I just see the evaluation bar. I'm not sure why it's a mistake, but bishop to g2 looks natural to kind of safeguard the white king. Now this black pawn is running.
Yeah, well, but actually it's stunning that black wins according to computer with queen b6 check, king h2, queen f2, forcing white rook to g1, and then the stunning little quiet move rook e2, which is so easy to miss. I mean, rook e2 is a key move by the computer, and then goes for d2, rook e1.
Okay, and that will be around the move 40 mark. So we were talking about how that can spoil people's chances if they're kind of itching to get to the time control, but no time to be accurate. And you could see that scenario. Black needs to give a check here. Kick the white king into the corner. Okay, 40 seconds for Pragg. Oof, nightmare situation.
Yeah, he played his last move with 10 seconds. It was a mistake, but he sensed that this is a critical moment, but he did not have more time to think, and finally opted for bishop g2, trying to stabilize the situation. But according to computer, this is losing. The big question is queen b6 check, queen f2. I feel like it's kind of natural in the sense that we know exactly that Arjun has this incredible vision of the whole board. But then spotting rook e2, which will be move 40, I believe it will be move 40. That will be the decisive moment.
Peter, I think I've spotted a really important detail as well. After queen b6 check, queen c5 is impossible because of queen takes queen and then rook takes g2, just to stop the white bishop from stopping the d-pawn.
Wow, yes, that's beautiful. But also d2 wins on the spot.
Oof,
but
okay. That was too simple for me.
Yeah, but let's just show that, this is also a fantastic idea. And both pawns on e6 and d2 make sure that white's rook is not able to fight against the d2 pawn. So all eyes on Arjun. This is such a tense moment. That's an incredible opportunity. However, the players don't know what's going on. And definitely at the end of the day, Pragg will be relying on some queen e7 counterplay. After rook g1, rook e2, the crazy computer move, Pragg will try the move queen e7, setting up ideas with queen f6 check, trading queens, and then trying to fight that d2 pawn with the combination of the rook and the bishop.
Yeah, this is not easy for Erigaisi. We should highlight that, especially with under 1 minute on the clock now. It's only a very, very narrow path to victory, and it's not an obvious one, not natural, that rook e2 move, especially. Okay, moment of truth is incoming. Around 40 seconds each. He's reaching out. Is he going to give the check with his queen? It's tempting to push the pawn, but yeah.
He gives.
He does. He finds it.
He does, yeah.
At least the first move. Rook e2 is the difficult one in 2 moves time, and that will be move 40 as far as I can tell. Or move 39 even.
39 even, yes, exactly.
Okay. Does it matter where Pragg puts his king? Hides it on h2.
Yeah, it's of course you hide on h2 just to make sure that the pawn won't promote with check, or also when black sets up this rook e2, d2 queen f2 played, rook g1 will be blitzed out, and all eyes on Arjun at this moment, this very moment. Will he find this incredible rook e2 move, which from distance computer I was saying as the winning move? Maybe there are also some alternatives, but the key idea is that after rook g1, already played, of course. Yes, and rook e2 is clearly the only move to win. Unbelievable. And the main point being rook e2, queen e7, you just ignore the set of queen f6. You push the pawn to d2, queen f6 check, black simply trades, takes, and then black activates the king, marches all the way to c3. White is just too passive fighting, and on the board. Wow, brilliant play.
Wow, Arjun Erigaisi is a superstar. Imagine finding that move with just 1 minute on the clock. It's not obvious. It's not an immediate threat. It still takes 2 or 3 moves to build up that killer threat. But yeah, this one is just paralyzed Pragg's pieces. The D pawn's going to win the game. Oh, what a move.
Unbelievable power performance by Arjun. Of course, we have witnessed him. We knew exactly that he's capable of finding. This is very much his type of chess. I believe that he is already on par with the very best in this kind of positions. Just fantastic.
Yeah, when it's a bit wild, when it's dynamic, a bit messy, he's always finding his way, navigating really well there. And it looks like Pragg has to go for this queen exchange. Otherwise, black's just going d2, rook e1, pretty much pre-move at this point. There we go. Pragg brings his queen in. We will see that endgame, but yeah, as you say, Peter, just too quick with the black king. No counterplay at all for white.
Yes. I mean, okay, there is some case to be made that eventually, I don't know, king h1 at the end of the day. And then d2 played. So the time control has been made. It's move 40. Yes, the position was objectively winning. I only don't know what happens with our break. Do we have a break or do we continue analyzing?
Oof, move 40. I think we might go on a very short break, but we'll leave a camera up and we'll let everyone know as the results and as the moves tick in. This one, don't go anywhere because the drama is guaranteed. We will see some results and maybe even potentially a couple of wins for the black pieces in just a few minutes' time. So we will see you soon. Stay with us.
Interested in becoming a chess streamer like your favorite creators, such as Hikaru, Gotham Chess, and the Botez sisters?
Come on! Look at this! Woo!
The Chess.com Community Streamer Program is growing every day. Whether you're just getting started with streaming or already established and looking to expand your audience, you can now connect your account to Chess.com and have your stream promoted on the game's largest platform. Simply link your account at chess.com/settings/connected accounts, set your category to chess on Twitch, and start streaming. You'll get an ad-free experience on chess.com. You will pop up on our list of live streamers. Your chess.com profile will feature your Twitch stream, and your stream will be linked to your games on our Play server. Type Command Community Streamer in chat and start growing your stream today. Looking for a new way to learn chess? Meet Dr. Wolf, the ideal chess coach and companion. Play against Dr. Wolf as he explains everything step by step, points out strategic ideas, and alerts you to your mistakes. Train with him and go over your past mistakes until you master them. Choose from over 35 lessons created for all skill levels. No matter your level, everyone could use a coach. Download Learn Chess with Dr. Wolf for Android or iOS devices today.
So I loved puzzles. I loved solving any puzzle you put in front of me. So chess was a natural for my brain. It was the unsolvable puzzle. It wasn't one of those things you just looked at, here is the puzzle, what's the solution? It was a puzzle inside of an enigma, inside of a mystery. Like, what is this game? And there was so much to it. The more you learn, the more there was to learn. So that puzzle solving gift that I had, or desire, wish, I would do crossword puzzles, back in the day as well as a high school kid, fell in love with New York Times crossword puzzles. I had to do one of those every day that the puzzle came out in the paper. So I always was a puzzle solver, and I think that made it easy for me to transfer over that skill set to chess.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the FIDE World Cup in Baku, Azerbaijan. It's been a dramatic day. It started a bit slowly, but things really came to life towards the time control, and now we get to unpack the positions we're left with potentially many decisive results on the cards. I'm Grandmaster David Howell and I'm joined by the awesome Peter Lecko. And Peter, what a few minutes we've had.
Absolutely. I mean, completely crazy action. Just as we expected, things heated up in time trouble. Dominguez is having a winning position against Caruana, but he has to find a winning move of move 41. Now he's taking his time. Magnus Carlsen is dominating his game, and basically it feels like it's just a matter of time when Gukesh will have to throw in the towel. It just so much domination from Black's forces in this Rukan game. We do see that Gukesh played a move, and also this incredible time trouble between Pragg and Erigaishi ending dramatically, apparently after move 40, Erigaishi after finding that stunner rookie to move that computer highlighted earlier on.
Yeah, lots to unpack there. Let's jump in, let's do a bit of a deep dive, and let's update ourselves with the clash between Gukesh and Carlsen. It looks like that one, at least objectively, could soon be finished. Look at those black pawns that you're highlighting. Oof, they're just too far advanced. They are going to win this race. Gukesh can grab a pawn on b5, but it will be in vain. Simply no way that white's pawns can ever catch up. What would you do, Peter, here? Would you try for one last trick or two? I don't see any way to keep playing, to be honest.
Yeah, it's basically heartbreaking, yeah, that Gukesh, who has played a wonderful World Cup, I mean, he hasn't been in any danger whatsoever. He got into such a hopeless passive Rukan game, yeah, and he can't generate any counterplay. Yeah, he finally takes on b5. He had to do it. I mean, just sit and wait is equal to resignation. But Black's pawns are just way too advanced. The pawn on g2 will fall as well. Hang on, by the way, after rook b8, can Magnus even make a cause of just pushing the pawn to e2 and follow it up with rook e3?
Yeah, I think that pawn is about to queen unless white runs back with the king, but that's going to lead to disaster anyway. Yeah, maybe we put that on the board. Rook b8 would be met by e2, and that's just game over instantly.
Yeah, that's the highlight. Rook takes e3, f takes e3, and Black's e-pawn queens. And e3 on the board.
Yeah. And Gukesh gave a check.
He gave a check.
So he's forcing the black king away. But I don't think this will help black's king advancing.
Well, now he can at least play the move rook b8, because after e2 he has a check. But I mean, simply, it's also not obligatory for Magnus to just rely on that idea, yeah? Rook b5 check happened. Okay, king e4 will follow. Yeah, Magnus already in blitzing mode.
Yeah, I think both players know the outcome here. It's just going through the motions. Rook b8 finally on the board. He's going to try and stop black's pawns from behind, but Magnus can grab on g2 here. Not sure what the most practical, the most professional way to finish this one off is.
Well, e2 is possible, yeah, because after rook e8 check, king d3, rook d8 check, we simply have this typical king e3, rook e8 check, king d2, and then finally we get access with the bridge on the third rank.
Zigzag.
Yes, and if white sacrifices on the e2, then we also have this monster pawn on f4 to decide the fate, but it's up to Magnus to decide which direction he goes. Everything seems to be winning, just picking up the pawn on g2 as well.
Yeah, I think we'll stay here just to see how the world number one finishes this off. I think e2 is the most direct, it's the most kind of clean way right now. Unless, yeah, I was going to say e2 unless there's king c2, but just playing for tricks, but black can play rook to e3 there. And
let's just show this, yeah, e2, king c2. e1 queen would be a terrible mistake, might even turn in white's favor. Okay, maybe black, thanks to the activity, can make a draw, but definitely you don't want to do that, losing a queen just like this. But the problem is, after king c2, black simply plays the move rook e3, making sure that the e-file is blocked, and there is no way to stop the pawn.
Yeah. Might as well play one last trick, force the opponent to be a bit accurate, but Magnus has a bunch of time on the clock, and e2 is indeed on the board. Gukesh, is it time to extend that hand? Is it time to resign?
Or make this one more move, king c2, rook e3, and then resign. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. No, it's been a tough game. I mean, ever since the opening, which we were praising him for, ever since that kind of led to this slightly slower endgame with the imbalance and black with a better structure. I mean, he's not made any blunders, Gukesh. But there we go. He does fall to defeat. Magnus takes the win. And only needs a draw with the white pieces tomorrow to progress to the semi-finals.
Yeah, very smooth. Yeah, what a win by Magnus, and what a smooth victory. I mean, after the opening, after these first 6-7 moves, if somebody asked me my honest opinion and we talked about it, I would have said Magnus in a lot of danger. I mean, Gukesh was in a brilliant form. He was trying to grab the initiative, and the way how Magnus handled that situation with his bishop b4, taking it on e4, making sure that he has everything under control, able to trade queens, that was really wonderful play by him.
Yeah, wonderful play by the world number one. Practical play as well, just taking the sting, taking the energy out of the game and using his experience there. But another big fight tomorrow. Gukesh will come out all guns blazing despite having black. So this one isn't over. But it's our first result of the day in the